Ranieri tries one!
Guaranteeing a fifth Champions League spot for the English clubs, which means we probably won't get Isak. This is Not That Kind of Gooner, an Arsenal podcast, and we are coming to you after Arsenal's, I can't believe I'm going to say this, 3-0 win at home to Real Madrid in the Champions League quarterfinal. 2 goals from Declan Rice, and we will definitely get to those, and as well, really nice strike from Mikel Merino to really give us a nice little cushion going into what's going to be definitely a crazy and stressful and probably high-intensity match at the Santiago Bernabeu Stadium next week. But we'll get to all of that, and we'll talk about some other things kind of in and around the match, and definitely some of the other performances as well. But first, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. I'm Sham. You can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale. You can follow me on Blue Sky at shamsdale.bsky.social. And with us today, we have John, who you can follow on Twitter at 305cast, and you can follow him on Blue Sky at yellowribbons.bsky.social. John, how are you doing, my man?
I'm still kind of soaking it all in. And, it's one of those matches where you immediately after you start consuming everything that is out there, right? You go through all the Reddits and subreddits, you go to Twitter, and I started realizing what a historic kind of game that is going to end up being, even, and not even talking about whether we go through or not, which is what it is. It's going to, obviously going to the Bernabeu and it's a whole nother monster, right? But we can kind of cross that bridge when we get to it, because at the end, I'll tell you when it set in. The first goal, I was like, oh, this could be really good. And then right after that second goal, I said, what exactly just happened? What did I just witness here? And then Marino scored, and I said, holy crap, we're about to beat up on Real Madrid in a quarterfinal of the Champions League. What's going on here? And Declan said it best in his post-match interview. I don't think it's set in for him. He was kind of the impression that he doesn't think it's going to set in for his whole career, and that eventually he'll look back at this historically and say what an amazing moment it was. But then it was kind of contradictory, because at another point he was like, this is the greatest moment of my career. This is what it's about, right? This is why we want to be in the Champions League. This is why we've been, even during the Wenger era, been saying hey, we want Champions League football, these kind of big nights. And it felt good to do it again against a team like Real Madrid in the way that we did it. That was I think the best part of it, because you could say what you want about this team, right? The biggest part for me was everyone says this Arsenal doesn't win trophies, and they're right to an extent. We haven't, but it feels like now we made a statement about where we are as a club. And it's not just how we won. It was kind of the approach that Real Madrid took too, if you think about it, because they were I guess we'll get into it specifically, but they were kind of scared of us a little bit, it felt like, which is kind of crazy. If you had told us that Real Madrid in a quarterfinal of Champions League 5 years ago would be afraid of us at home, and that we'd go and we'd beat them 3-0, I mean, I think we would jump at that. So It's a pretty great time to be an Arsenal fan right now. Come what may next week, we can cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah. It's absolutely crazy. I'm just excited as you are to get into all of it. And before we do that, let's also bring Drew in here, who you can follow on Twitter at Geechee Kid. I'm reading the thing that you have on your video. See, brain fart, but you saved me. You can follow on Twitter at Geechee Kid, and you can follow on Blue Sky at Supply and Demand, Drew.bsky.social. It is Drew. How you doing?
I mean, I'm good. Thankfully I didn't work today, because working yesterday, covering the matches, it was hard enough covering the matches, and then having to write about the match after that, while I was so high on adrenaline after each and every goal. And the spike just got it. If I don't want to make an inappropriate joke, but I just kind of feel after every goal, like the level of elation you kind of felt, and I still felt today, and I tweeted that on, or rather, I quote unquote skeeted that on Blue Sky earlier today, where I said, this is kind of why I'll never understand why, because they haven't experienced it, but why football fans in particular love the sport. Because to feel this high the day after to the same degree, over 24 hours after the fact, and like, this is what makes football. And I wouldn't change anything, even for the down periods we've had as Arsenal supporters, questions about if the club is going to, tank and become like where Spurs or United are now. But seeing like the reanimation of us under Arteta and how we just, stood toe to toe with the biggest club on the planet. And let's be clear. And I think I was trying to explain to some of my friends yesterday who aren't football fans. Like, you don't understand. Like, this is pretty big. Like, to beat Real Madrid, who habitually win this competition, who are the biggest club in the world, and do it, not just do it, but do it comfortably. We didn't like shithouse a 1-0. Like, we comfortably beat a Real Madrid team who no one gave us a chance against. And I'm going to give myself my own flowers because I said I wanted Real Madrid over Atletico de Madrid for this reason. And we'll talk about that later. But to answer your question, I'm great. And I enjoyed my day off, enjoying this feeling as well. And it's funny, while I was listening here to John, you could tell that John was so excited to talk about this. I was like struggling to like hold back all his thoughts. And I'm having that same kind of moment too. And I know Sham's also like kind of like touching his seat. And he's kind of like we're talking about it. Like, I get it. I totally get it. So
I do. Yeah. And it's like, it's hard to like.
I think
John's so excited his computer died. He short-circuited the computer.
We'll see if we can get him back. But
let's just take a moment. John's face right now is perfect. That should be like that should go on the front of like the podcast intro. With John, it's brilliant.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, John's freeze frame here is exactly how I felt for the last 27 hours. It's great, and just kind of piggyback on what you guys said. It's, I also had several friends kind of text me, kind of in the hours after the game, just like, wow. Like Real Madrid just lost to Arsenal. Like, Shane, were you watching? And I was like, yeah, of course I was watching. Like, but yeah, just, it's such a big result that people who aren't even kind of inside that bubble of football are aware of it and know how momentous and significant that win is. So, it's really exciting. It's really encouraging, and it's just a really special night. I wrote kind of on my Substack after the match about how, regardless of where this goes, and regardless of whether we go on to win the Champions League or if we blow it at the Bernabeu next week, this is another memory that we're going to keep with us forever. That is just really special, and it's something that we're going to reflect on for years and years and years, and tell our kids and our grandkids and nephews and nieces and all that jazz. So I'm super proud of the team, and let me see if John's back in here. No, I guess not.
It's okay. I'm sure they'll work it out. But it's funny because in the run up to so one of the things that we do at One Football at a time, depending on what's available for media, is we'll do a lot of like nostalgic posts earlier in the day, kind of like an on this day kind of thing. And you see it on Twitter as well. You'll see like an on this day. Remember Thierry Henry's goal, first whoever, right? And one of the things I had written about earlier in the day was the amount of stars that turned out for that second leg at Highbury against Real Madrid after we had won 1-0 in the first leg. And when you were writing about it, and you just remember like the amount of star talent on display. We had Bergkamp on the bench. I don't know if people remember, but Real Madrid were starting like Zidane, Beckham, Raul, Ronaldo, Vigo, like all on the same.
The Galacticos.
That's a better team than the team we just played, and we still stood toe to toe. And you could probably argue that Real Madrid side didn't fear anybody, and we still, over two legs, progressed earlier in the competition, because that was in the round of 16 that we beat them, because they didn't even win their group that season, and we had won ours comfortably. And it kind of just reminds you of like, and I remember watching that match live, and I'm reminded in the build up to the match yesterday how I was sitting at work all day. Just so much like anticipation, wondering about what the result's going to be, like working out scenarios in my head, like what my concerns were, what I was looking at as positives. And I can imagine the two of you were probably very similar mindset in that, and I know friends of mine, same thing. But overall, like the biggest thing I want to kick off with today is the fact that, and I tweeted this last night immediately after the full-time whistle, I had said, even the staunchest Arteta out or Kroenke out person yesterday, I was like, I want them to also enjoy it. And the reason why is two things. One was also like this should unify a fan base behind what the ultimate goal is. That's the first thing. But also the second thing is this should be irrefutable proof of A, what Arteta is capable of as a manager, B, what this team is capable of as they grow as a unit, and C, this is a feeling that you want year on year. So even though we haven't won the league yet under Arteta, still making Champions League and still having these moments need to be enjoyed by this fan base because there's bigger things to come. And why one of the things I got so frustrated about, we don't have to necessarily talk about it later, was instantaneously in the aftermath, people were already creating false narratives about the free kick. And how Ødegaard was like, don't shoot. And Rice is like, no, fuck you, I'm going to shoot anyway. And trying to make that as like a stick to beat Ødegaard with. In the midst of all of us celebrating, arguably the biggest result of our history, certainly at the Emirates, in the Premier League era, people are already trying to be divisive. And I just want fans to just stop being divisive right now. Enjoy what we're doing at this moment. You can be divisive later all you want. Like right now, be unified about what's going on. Hopefully we get another result in the Bernabeu. Hopefully we go on to semifinals and maybe the finals. You never really know. But like just enjoy, just be happy in the moment. Stop being, just be happy right now. Like simple.
Yeah, it's weird. It's all a matter of framing, right? Because because like that, in a way that did happen, right? After the match, Declan Rice came out and said that Jover actually wanted him to cross that free kick, the first free kick, and I think he also did say Ødegaard wanted it, like said you should cross it or like recommended crossing it.
Yeah, because that's the match plan, which is different than Ødegaard trying to be passive or whatever. That's him. He's following the match plan, which is what you're supposed to do.
Ødegaard is basically like another member of the coaching staff on the pitch, right? Mm-hmm. That's kind of the role he serves on the field, personality wise, right? So of course he's just going to kind of back up the coaches and the manager, but I mean the way I look at it, right? Ødegaard's whatever. Ødegaard's there doing what he always does, and that's not a good or a bad thing, right? But I mean, I guess that's more of a good thing than a bad thing. But the way I looked at it was that's really impressive winning mentality from Rice. And again, I because people love to turn this into a black and white thing. I'm just talking about Rice. I'm not talking about anyone else right now.
Exactly.
I loved how the coaches and his captain were saying cross it, and then Rice was just like, I don't like that wall. That wall, I feel like I could bend it around the wall. I'm going to go for it. It's Real Madrid at home. I'm going to take the shot. And Saka even said, if you feel it, then do it. And he did it, and he was rewarded for it. And I'm so happy for Declan Rice after this game because ever since we signed him in the summer of 2023, it feels like people have really been talking down on him. Whether or not, it's malicious, right? I think people outside of Arsenal have always looked at Rice just like, oh yeah, he's a tidy little defensive player, like at best, right? And then most people are just like, he's a shin kicker. He's not as good as Caicedo, yada, yada. And it was really nice for Rice to show people 2 times what a high-level technical talent he is, and just what a talented all-around footballer he is. He's not just a defensive midfielder. I think this season especially, he's shown that he might be a better 8 than he is a 6. And that's something that I personally have resisted for a while. And, it really only a few months ago, I finally had to admit to myself, no, he's really good in that position. And it just I'm just so happy for him that he could go pull off these two magical moments in front of the entire world and just nail. What the first free kick was basically Roberto Carlos style, and the second was right in the postage stamp. I'm so excited for him, and those are probably two of the best free kicks in Arsenal and Champions League history. So good on him.
No, but John was back, so I want to hear what John has to say.
Yeah, John, how are you feeling?
I mean, I think it's an absolutely incredible win, and it's an absolutely incredible performance. And I think you guys covered it well with Rice. I'm just so happy for him. And there was that picture. I don't know if you guys talked about it or the video while it was off, but of Gabriel kind of sitting up in the box, Big Gabby, and he celebrating the free kick. And you could just see he was like emotional, and all of his family and friends were there with him. And you could see how much it meant to him, because he is kind of, in terms of personality on the pitch, it's like Big Gabby and Rice. Like they are the two that are kind of similar in being like tenacious and intense. And to see him kind of watch his teammates, knowing how much he'd want to be on there, putting it all on the line for them. I think that win meant a lot, not just for Declan Rice, but for Big Gabby, who knew that he wanted to be out there. So I thought that was a great moment. And when you're looking at kind of the effect that this game could have, I was getting into it before I got cut off, is that it really kind of puts a stamp on this project, I think. And that's why I said, come what may of this game next week, this was a statement win and a statement performance. And it showed on to an incredible degree, order of magnitude, the kind of big game player that Declan Rice is. It's still crazy. I'm still processing all those strikes. I mean, to do it once is amazing against Courtois and against this side on that stage in this kind of a game. But then to do it again, and then arguably even better, like within like 12 minutes, is absolutely ludicrous. It's disgusting, and he had no right doing that. And then you see all these stats about Mbappe not being able to score a free kick, and then you hear all the stats about Declan Rice has never scored one before, and now he's scored two. Like the
338 senior appearances, no free kicks until that night against Real Madrid.
Yeah, crazy, but he's got to be the designated free kick taker now, right? I mean, he's the next free kick that we get. It's got to be Rice. Right. If it's anywhere close to one that footed player should be taken, it's going to be him. At least the next one, right? Surely. Yeah.
Actually, you know what? That I think that's a really good point, and that kind of reminds me of something I've wanted to ask you guys. Have you felt prior to the Real Madrid game that it should be Rice taking the free kicks?
I mean, he takes our corners. It's like clear that he could put the ball where he wants it, and that he has amazing control and technique over it. I think. Odegaard obviously is an excellent one. Saka is another one because Saka's on the other end there, right? Because if it's the other leg, I guess it'd be what point is that like these are technical players, big game players that like to take control over games. That's who you want taking free kicks. But yeah, I've always kind of been wondering, why is Rice not taking more free kicks? Considering how good he is technically and how much we trust him in the set pieces. I've always wondered why this was a set piece. And by the way, a history of scoring absolute bangers from outside the box, like throughout his career, even at West Ham. So why is he not taking them for us? So I did question that for a bit.
Yeah, I've thought it was so weird. And before we signed him, right, I did a bit of amateur scouting, and I was watching some of his games in depth, and kind of one of the things I was excited about when we signed Rice, in addition to the more obvious qualities, is that he is, I think, an elite ball striker. I think he almost always makes really clean contact with the ball and shoots with power almost every time, right? So whenever he gets the ball on the outside of the box, kind of in that left half space area, part of me always wants him to take the shot. Obviously, it's not always on. But, that's something I know he has in his locker. And like you said, he kind of has a history of, scoring some really nice goals from outside the box. So I would always see him line up with, whether it's Odegaard or Saka, or I remember one time Sterling took a free kick instead of him. And I was like, what are we doing? What are we doing here?
I don't get it. I don't get it. He's got all the attributes, and now he's got all the attributes to be a good free kick taker, and now he's got pretty much the resume for it. So maybe it had to do with the fact that he's just never scored one before in his career, and then maybe they were a little bit hesitant to do it. But like, surely he's scoring them in practice and training. Like, you don't just do what you just did there and have that be the first time you've ever done that before. That's not even something I'm willing to entertain as a possibility. So yeah, it is weird that he hasn't historically at least tried one for us.
Well, he said it in his post-match conference. Post-match comments, he said it's been in the locker already. So he's already hinted that this is not new for him. You know what I mean?
Right.
So whatever the set piece plans are through during whatever match, this probably throws somewhat of a spanner in the works in a good way.
Maybe.
I think opening up him as a free kick taker makes sense, because he'll give you the type of free kick that we haven't normally been having before. It's been Odegaard trying to just place it, even Saka to a degree. We have someone who can strike a ball with that much ferocity from distance. It opens things up. And I think people need to understand the level of precision on both of those goals. And also to beat Courtois, Courtois taller than John. John is 6'4". Courtois is taller than both of us. And he didn't get anywhere near close to either of those. And that's the point. So if you have a player who can do that, even remotely consistently, that gives the other team such a massive thing they have to consider every single week when they come up against us. And that's something that other clubs used to bank on. David Beckham, same thing. I used to love when they used to get him on the ball in the free kick, or for England as well. You had Juninho at Lyon, who used to score 40-yard free kicks habitually, or whatever. And Kim Kallstrom during his prime, when he was at Lyon, scored quite a bit of free kicks too. So in that same type of way. So if you have someone that can do that, it makes us even more dangerous on set piece than we already are. Because even if you just have Rice standing over the ball, you have to think he's shooting here. And it doesn't mean he's going to have to be, but it means you have a bit more jeopardy in every situation you can capitalize on. It doesn't mean you're going to shoot, but it means the threat of him just being there means a lot. And that's
just knowing it can happen means the other team has to prepare for it.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah. No, it's really exciting to see him have that in his locker. And like you said, that's just kind of another string for our bow, really, where you have two wingers in Saka and Martinelli, and we're probably going to acquire another one in the summer, and we have, hopefully that will mean we have three dangerous wide players at least, who are going to get into those dangerous central areas from time to time, and they're going to force those fouls, and then you're going to have Declan Rice staying over them. You just saw what he did against Real Madrid, so I think that is really useful for us, and of course, it's just another set piece for us to be really good at. So that's nice. But I wanna come to probably the other standout performance for Arsenal against Real Madrid.
I know you're gonna say it, and you should say it before I do.
I mean, it's Miles Lewis-Skelly.
Oh,
that's a few. That's not what I was thinking of. Then there's more than one. I think I was gonna say Timber. Timber was brilliant.
Oh yeah, no, Timber was excellent as well. So we can touch on Timber in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But I just kind of want to show some love for Lewis-Skelly, because I feel like every single test I've seen thrown at this kid, he has passed with flying colors. Right? He comes on against Manchester City to make his debut, and he, obviously we conceded at the end of the dying seconds of the match, but I think he had a really good game. He stood up for himself, defended pretty well. I was impressed. And then, he starts playing in the Champions League, and he does well there. And then he, starts playing in bigger games for us, and is starting in these bigger games, and is also doing really, really well. And then he gets called up for England and scores on his debut, and is one of the best players on the pitch for England. And now he is playing.
But do you see though, Sham? This is what I'm talking about. This is why you play these kids. This is what it's about. This is like those moments that we're talking about.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think it's one of those things where you have to be really careful with the development of these players, and I think we've seen it happen with a lot of young players over the years, where they get thrown in a little early, because they show that promise, and then either that's too much for them, kind of the pressure of the moment, or maybe the physical demand gets to them and they're never really able to kind of reach that final physical development that they're supposed to be at. So, I think there are dangers to throwing in players a little early. I think we timed it really well with Nwaneri and Lewis Skelly. And, he's 18, but I mean, the guy went up against Jude Bellingham and Rodrigo and Camavinga.
So tell me there isn't a fire under Nwaneri right now for that away
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Coming in as a sub at some point, maybe even I don't know if he'll start. Hopefully Saka's okay, but like it's kind of hard to take Saka off too if he's fit, right? But you just know that there's like he's seeing the flowers and he's going to want to score some goals at the Bernabeu.
I think Nwaneri will start at Brentford for sure.
Yeah,
or
definitely.
Against Brentford. But
I think we might. Hopefully, we can see some minutes for him. But like you said, maybe that's too big of a stage for him right now. Because every case is different, right? So
yeah. I mean, we'll see about the Bernabeu. I think it really depends on what the game state looks like.
I'm going to be honest. I couldn't really care about Brentford. How do you I'm going to watch that game and just be like, all right, whatever. Like, stay fit.
I saw this really funny post on Blue Sky because it, got reported that the backroom staff for Arteta all got extended so that their contracts are kind of in line with his. And someone quote tweeted, I think it was Sam Dean who reported that. Someone quote tweeted him and said, "Oh, that's wonderful. Hopefully they'll all be playing on hopefully they'll all be on the pitch against Brentford on Saturday."
Yeah, see, exactly. That's what. Yeah, look. I mean, that game is. I couldn't care. I don't think I've cared less about a Premier League game in a while. That's not like at the end of a season.
I have a really close friend who's a Brentford fan, and I'm not looking forward to him being like, what's this team that you guys are playing, and me just having to respond, yeah, we don't care about you like that this time.
yeah, we can do whatever you want. We don't care.
but yeah, I'm.
Oh no, again, the title race. Come on.
Yeah, no, that's done. We our focus is elsewhere at this point.
Yeah,
but sure. Yeah, I'm just I'm really proud of Lewis Skelly because he's going up against almost a Galactica level team, 18 years old, unfazed, still probably the best midfielder on the pitch that day outside of Rice, or maybe even including Rice. Honestly, I wouldn't debate that. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think he's approaching world-class status already. And that might be a big thing to say. I can already see Drew disagreeing.
Yeah, that's big. Yeah, let's
I think he's here's what I'll say. If he's not there now, we are going to be talking about him like that very, very soon. Right?
He's got the ingredients of it, right? He just hasn't been baked yet.
Yeah. I mean, that's. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like he's got. I think he's on that trajectory, right?
Sure. I can agree with that.
And he's on the. I think his trajectory has him arriving at that level sooner than maybe people are expecting him to. But I mean, I see Lamine Yamal and I see Desiree Doué, and I think Lewis Skelly is kind of in that tier. Obviously, he's not at the level of Lamine Yamal, right? But like, I think he's kind of entering this extremely young, but consistently one of the best players on the pitch kind of level. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of where I am with him. But
that's not that much different than Saka, because when Saka had his first real breakout season in goal contributions, people were already saying, "Oh, this kid's world class." I'm just like, and kind of like what John said, just because he's having a really good year as a young player doesn't make him world class yet. But you can see why he will become world class. And I think Lewis Skelly is in that same exact position. I think if he has that same level of consistency all throughout next season, then I would agree with you. I think he's in that kind of bracket, or at least world class for his age bracket, if that makes sense. Because I do think sometimes people don't realize what it means to be genuinely world class. To me, I define it differently. I think you're world class if you're one of the best 3 or 4 players in your position in the world, or at least in Europe. That to me is world class. I think you can be. I think there's elite and world class are 2 different things. You know what I mean? So it just depends on how you kind of view it. But I do think if we're talking about him the same way we are now, all throughout next season, going into a World Cup year, and then if he starts for England and then shows for England, then that tournament, then I would agree with you. I think at that point it would be indisputable where he'd have to be considered one of the best left backs. And it's funny because I was in one of the group chats. We were talking a little the day before the match, and someone posed the question, he's doing so well, should we move him into midfield? I'm like, no. And I'll say why. Because, Saka got his breakthrough as a left back just because. We needed someone with a left to play there, but it doesn't mean that was going to be his trajectory. I think with Lewis Scully, he's a fullback on the team sheet, but he's not a fullback in tasking. If you look at the zones he takes up in play, he's across the halfway line consistently. He's always tucking in and making marauding runs for us. So we're using him more like a midfielder anyway. Yeah. But we still need him to have. He still has that workhorse ethic and that responsibility about him to where you still need him as a left back. I think if you move him into midfield, I think it wouldn't be the same. I think the qualities he brings as an inverted left back allow us to do so much of what we're doing right now. And then moving forward, how we can build that team whenever we get whatever left wing we get by in the summer, adding an inverted Lewis Skelly to whoever it is, let's just say it's Nico Williams or whatever, that's a really devastating inverting combo on that left side to go with another one that you have with Saka on the right. That makes us really hard to defend against. I think that's kind of the point. But just moreover, I think Lewis Skelly, I agree that he's on that pathway to becoming world class, and I do agree with you. I think if he's in that same spot or better come in the next season, then I would agree with you. So
that's a really good point. Where I remember I saw this screenshot from the match where Partey has the ball and he's basically in front of kind of a back 3 of Timber, Saliba, and Kivior, and then there's kind of a line of, I think it's 2 or 3 Real Madrid players, and then in the dead center of the pitch, right behind that line, is Miles Skelly, kind of inviting that line-breaking pass from Partey. So he's already taking up supremely central positions, and we've seen him dozens of times now try to dribble into that left half space, kind of on the edge of the box, and do something. So, he's one of those players I think defies conversations about positions.
It's a role, not position. That's kind of all you really need to know. Exactly. Not where you're putting it necessarily, I guess.
Exactly. There's zones that he's going to occupy throughout a match, depending on certain circumstances. Yep. But he's not really a left back. He's not really a center mid. That's just where he is on the team sheet. But yeah, that was I think that was kind of the performer that I wanted to focus on. But Drew, I'm gonna give you the floor now.
After the latest intake into the Urian Timber State Correctional Facility, welcome to Vinicius Jr. I kind of feel like this for me, and we talked about it before about what's going to happen when Ben White's fully fit. Will Timber still start? And as much as I rate Ben White and what he's done since he came, it's hard. It's getting hard to not start Timber, because much like Lewis Skelly, you have a guy who he's such a shutdown defender. I feel like White is more kind of like that kind of quiet, silky fullback that just he positions well. He's obviously he can make a good splitting pass. His work ethic is there, but Timber's kind of like another animal in a way that Lewis Skelly is compared to Calafiore. I think you're looking at obviously, ironically enough, 2 similar players, even though Timber will invert less. But he's become so vital to shutting down whatever wide threat, whoever he has. And to do that against Vinicius Jr. and also Mbappe, who will drift, that's a big performance. I think that's also one of the key ways to shut Real Madrid down is if you shut Vinicius Jr. down, you oftentimes shut Real Madrid down. And for 2 reasons. 1, because he's such a key outlet for them. But 2, neither Vinicius Jr. nor Mbappe ever press very well. They don't defend very well. They're very much like just wait to receive and then run. And then when you have someone like Timber who can read those lines of play, he has good recovery pace. He's a physical player, obviously, not afraid to get stuck in. And he also offers something moving forward as well, better than probably Ben White does. I think that's also, and it's again similar to Scully, where you have now two fullbacks who can offer that same kind of threat in transition or building through the lines of play and then going into the final third. When you have that, that's such a key ingredient as well that I think we're probably lacking with White as much as I think White was like the kind of defender we needed when we were in that part of that metaphor system of what we're doing under Arteta. But I think Timber fits what we're doing more moving forward under Arteta now. And I hate to use the word phase because that's been overused, but wherever we're building towards now, I think Timber makes more sense. I think he showed against Real Madrid why that makes sense. I forget what the data was, but Vinicius, I think he completed like one of 5 dribbles, like not a chance created, no shot, like nothing. Like, he literally got nothing. There's nothing.
I've got the numbers
nothing
for you.
Yeah.
0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
Yeah. It was just dead zeros. And I saw that at full time when I was at work, and I was just like, man, like to do that against a player who fancies himself as the Ballon d'Or candidate, like, and you can debate how good he actually is. He is a very good footballer. He might be cocky on high heaven, but he is a very good player. So to do that against a player who many think he got robbed of a Ballon d'Or is impressive, especially coming off an ACL. That's the biggest thing. Coming off a horrendous injury that a lot of players don't come back from, to do that at that stage, massive. So
0 goals, 0 assists, 0 shots on target, 0 chances created, 0 key passes, 0 successful dribbles, 0 accurate crosses.
Yeah, the one moment that Vinicius had all game was in the 4th minute when Real Madrid broke on that quick counter, and Vinicius kept dragging wide, and he tried to do, for whatever reason, like a Travella pass for no reason at all. And that was the one big chance that he really had to actually make his mark on a match. And he tried to make it more, look like he tried to make it more about some moment of brilliance instead of just being effective and efficient, playing the pass a bit earlier to Mbappe, who would have outpaced Kiwior at that point probably. Apart from that, he did nothing. And so that says something. If you can shut him down to a moment of a 10-second span of play across, however long his performance was, that's huge.
Yeah. John, how about you? What's your take on Timber's performance?
I mean, he was excellent, and I mean, we've talked about this on the podcast before. He's kind of slowly becoming one of the best players in the season, like on the low. I think he's low key been one of the most consistent performers, one of the most tenacious, and there was a moment when he went down, it looked like he might have been hurt, and I went, and it kind of, my heart sunk, and I said, oh no. But he was fine. He gets beat up left and right. He really puts himself into the challenges. He puts himself into the duels. He loves to defend, which is really what you want. But he also loves to get involved in the build-up and the attacking play as well. Like, he's such an all-round total footballer, which makes sense coming from that like Dutch, kind of background. Like, that's what they do. These are total footballers, and he absolutely embodies that. And that's why we wanted him in the first place. And he's showing us what, if you do it correctly, not like incorrectly like Anthony, but if you do it correctly, what someone who has some background in that kind of Cruyff-esque football can do to a team that can keep possession and that can defend well. So that's exactly what we're seeing from him, and it's week in and week out. So, like I said, consistently on the low, one of our best players this season. I would like to give a special shout out to Kiwior this game, because that was the biggest question mark on the whole night, is Mbappe versus Kiwior, the front three of Real Madrid against Kiwior, and I mean, he shut him down. I mean, there was a couple little nervy moments, especially in the first half, but he, him and Saliba, I think, really picked up some of the slack, like we knew he would, but that was always going to happen. But you have to, once you get called up and you need to do your job, he did his job, and it's the second time in a row that he's done his job in tricky situations. And I think that, if anything, this should give Kiwior a lot of confidence, which I think maybe he's been lacking, not being even the second choice in that position. So hopefully this is a springboard for him to really challenge for that position, because at the end of the day, we could say maybe he's not talented enough as compared to the other options that we have. Certainly probably not for Big Gabby, but you want that kind of drive, that kind of challenge. You want our players to feel confident and think that every position on that pitch they can take from whoever is in front of them. And that kind of a performance is one that maybe it doesn't happen, but you want your backup players to think that they can do that. And this kind of a game and that kind of a performance will absolutely put that in his mind and in Saliba's mind and in our attack's mind and the midfield, who have to rely on the people behind them, that they know that even if one of our first choice, one of our second choice get injured, that we have quality backup in those positions. So I thought that was a huge performance from him. And as someone who was probably a little critical of him earlier and definitely worried about that position going into this game, I thought he was excellent.
Drew, I want to retract my apology from the previous episode for thinking that we couldn't win the Premier League with Kivior playing.
We're running up on each one, like each
yeah. I love how Shan will bring back an argument that everyone forgot just to contradict himself. I respect that.
I'm a transactional attorney by day, but I do love to relitigate things.
Well, that all clocks, to be honest with you. No, and I agree with you. And I think it's hard to look at that and say that he doesn't deserve a lot of flowers. One of my friends actually messaged me on Instagram. So my Instagram, I was unbearable on Instagram. And after yesterday, I mean, I put out like 20 story reels about everything between, like, from the club official account, from players, from whatever I saw on social media, just on repeat. And then one of my friends messaged me and she was saying, "You forgot Kivior," and she sent me something about it. And I was just like, "You're right." And I was okay. Well, he actually does deserve a time, because I, like anybody else, was incredibly worried about, Mbappe running Kivior for 90 minutes, like what this is going to do. And I think it also speaks to the fact that, and this, you can connect it, I think the fact that, as much as I don't like him, Thomas Partey was also brilliant. And that's kind of like, if we could just package those performances from him and have that consistently, I would never have a problem with the guy, because I think he was one of our best players total. He was great. And when you can have a performance from him like that, that's awful. They'll also give your center back, in this case, give you a lot of assurance as well. When you just don't feel that pressure, when you know someone's ahead of you that can help you deal with a team that is so good in transition like Real Madrid are, that'll boost your confidence in real time. And that actually makes a big, big difference. So, Kivior was great. I thought Partey was very, very good, if not one of the better, if not best players on the day. I think the big thing for me is I don't think we're even going to do it, but I don't have a single faller. I think everybody played well. And that's kind of also what you need when you get to the latter stages of Champions League. The collective has to perform. Everyone's got to perform. You can't have even one or two players below the standard, because if you do, you probably aren't going to win, or your job is just that much harder. So, I don't have much more to say necessarily about the performance, but there's not much more to say. I think we've all kind of said it or thought it previously, or tweeted a thought, or texted a thought. Someone else
I will say, you mentioned something in your kind of intro about down moments, right? And I think that it kind of made me think about what makes these kind of moments so special. And I think a lot of it has to do with just how difficult it's been on this stage for us, how little over the last decade or so we've had to celebrate at this stage of this competition. Yeah. And then in many cases over the last years, nothing at all, because we haven't been in the competition. And I think it's easy to forget that, because we've been so driven towards winning the Premier League and these title races and this Champions League has been this thing that we're happy that we're involved in again. But I mean, really, the fact that we're challenging for the title is great. But remember, all we wanted for a long time was to have legitimate challenges in the Champions League, just to be in it again. And to have these big European nights where, as much as I like the Champions League, like not playing Bayern every year and getting knocked out in the round of 16, to the away goal rule. So this is felt like a reminder as to what we were kind of working towards, and a reignition of excitement for this project, and kind of put things, at least for me, in a lot of perspective as to where we are as a club and the way that the world perceives Arsenal as a club. And it was interesting to see when there's a moment like that, you just can't, there's no argument against how spectacular that was for us. And it's one of those where even rival fans, even like the rival trolls that want to try to do whatever they can, really just have to throw their hand up. And the ones that aren't are, pathological. And everyone's just kind of like, what are you doing? But, they're going to be yelling at this guy anyway. But the reality is it was such a big moment for this club. And I don't think it can be understated. Come what may, again, next week, and what happens with the league and the rest of the season. But I think that was a big milestone for us.
I think as long as Arsenal don't embarrass themselves at Bernabeu, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's likely, to be quite honest. But as long as, we suddenly don't start doing, impressions of Mustafi and Mikel Silvestre, and, even if we lose, because there's ways to lose that are respectable, and there's ways to lose that have, even neutral onlookers saying, well, that's bullshit. They didn't deserve to lose. But I do think this is going to end up being a very significant moment in the history of Arsenal. And this is kind of something I've been thinking about a lot in the aftermath of last night, which is, just kind of this backdrop, right? Leading up to the match of, you had Nicholas Galitzine and Will Poulter and Idris Elba showing up in Arsenal media. Those are all A-list actors, right? And then you had Dua Lipa at the stadium taking pictures with Ricardo Calafiore afterwards. And you have Anne Hathaway, posting a video of herself singing North London Forever wearing an Arsenal shirt, right? And I think there's even, Gemma Chan was commenting on an Arsenal post and stuff like that. You have all these celebrities who are coming out and supporting the club. I think the club media did a really good job of hyping up the match as well. And kind of they put like this, this fun little slogan for the game, which was "Make it happen." And then the team comes out on the pitch and they belt to ass against Real Madrid, right? In front of the whole world. Declan Rice scores 2 worldies that have, commentators losing their shit in several languages. I'm surprised I didn't get the cops called on me yesterday with how much I was screaming. So they do all of that, and then kind of, I saw this, I think it was like a TikTok or an Instagram reel today of someone basically saying that London feels lighter today. And she was like, Arsenal, yeah. I don't know what you did. Arsenal, against Real Madrid, but do it again. Do it again, because everyone in London is in. Of course, this is some person I don't know. I'm not in London, so I can't really attest to how it is right now. But basically the point I'm getting at is Arsenal are the biggest culture club in England, I think. And now, yeah. And now we're starting to have these performances that match that stature, right? We're starting to put players out on the pitch who are just as talented as we are, a global brand, right? And I think what's going to happen is players and other teams and pundits and other coaches are going to see what we've done. And I think we're going to continue this, by the way. I think this is going to be kind of a cascading moment for a lot of the players on our team where they realize they're as good as Real Madrid. They're as good as Barcelona and Bayern Munich. They're right up there, right? So I think players are really going to start playing like that. but you're going to have all these outside forces and people as well kind of latch on to the fact and realize that Arsenal are a really damn good team. And they're in a massive city that they have a lot of influence in. They have a huge fan base, again, containing some really famous people. You know, I can't imagine how Declan Rice felt today seeing Anne Hathaway, you know, sing the club's anthem and then say, you know, congratulations to you, Rice, and then congratulations to you, Marino, and then congratulations again to you, Rice. Like, you know, that must be a crazy feeling. You know, we grew up watching her in, you know, Princess Diaries and all that stuff. So my point is, I think this is going to be a watershed moment for the collective stature of the club, and I think that is going to start attracting another level of talent to the team and more fans and just kind of generally more of a positive sentiment toward the club in media, I think.
That's the hope, but I feel like I was going to say, kind of building on it, like, you know, the joke part of this is, I forget who said it on Twitter, but like, you know, like in like the bowels of the Bernabeu, they're saying whatever like satanic ritual seance they need to make sure like the powers that be go their way in the second leg. And you can joke about it, but the reality is, if there's any club that can overturn a 3-0 first leg loss, it's Real Madrid. Because one of the things about knockout football is, all you have to do is get to the knockout stage of it, and you can go on and win it. And yeah, like, we made their job immeasurably more difficult with a 3-0, but if they decide to turn up and we don't, that team is capable of putting 4 past you if they're in the mood. So, and I think that I personally just don't want to see all the hard work and celebrations mean nothing if we were to like lose 5-1 or something. Like, and
there's no breaks to this train, man. We're going.
I agree, man. We would receive every justifiable bit of like backward banter we would deserve if we actually blew. I don't think we will, and I think it's important we don't, because I agree with you, Shem. Even if we lose like a 2-1 or whatever, again, a respectable loss, and we still knocked out the reigning champions, 15-time Champions League winners. If we were to knock them out on the way to the semifinals, especially with a summer pending where we have big business, that actually could mean something. Or, like, one step further, if we were to knock out Real Madrid on the way to making a final, even if you don't win it, it shows where the club is going. That actually does mean something for not just fans, of course, or the kind of like the vindication that like the project needs, but it'll show players that this is a serious club. And it matters, whether if you believe it or not, it actually matters. Players want to go to clubs they know are going to compete. And beating Real Madrid and moving past Real Madrid and making a deep run in Champions League will show players that you're serious. And that's one of the things I'm so frustrated about. And I sat there and thought earlier today, like when I was having lunch, and I was saying, like, even if we didn't reverse the rules of Liverpool this season, even if we just had their luck and they still kept their no injury good luck, we still wouldn't lead the season. I'm convinced of that. And that performance showed me why I'm convinced of that, because of what this team would do. And that was without Havertz in the lineup. That's with Moreno, who is still bagging goals as a center mid, playing, you know, in the reserve striker role. It just shows you like where we've come. And there was one post on Twitter that said, you know, 4 years ago on this day, we just let a late lead slip against Slavia Prague in the Europa League and drew 1-1 4 years ago today. That's where we've come from. And I think fans need to remember that. And that's, again, for me, that's enough indication to know. But I think one more point is the fact that you have a media outlet as big as AS calling Bukayo Saka the best right wing in the world.
The torturer.
If they're openly saying that, I don't want to ever entertain a Phil Foden or Cole Palmer debate ever again. I'm just putting it out there now as well. Keep your debates with someone who's going to listen to you. It's not going to be me. Like, but that also matters, because when you can boast having a player who is, we'll just say, like, to be respectful, arguably the best in the world, we've not really had that since Thierry Henry, basically. We really haven't. Like, I wouldn't even say that about Alexis Sanchez when we had him, or, you know, as for a brief period with us, was still part of the best 10 in the world, and then it quickly became Kevin De Bruyne, and then he took off from there, obviously, and that was kind of it. But not since that same period where we were playing Real Madrid at Highbury, when we had the likes of Henry in the team, can we say we had one of the best players in the world? And we can say that about Saka, and we'll be able to say that about future players hopefully in certain positions. But it's exciting, and I just want that again. I want no pricks on this train, like John said. Just keep it moving, basically. So, yeah.
Shit, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh my goodness.
No,
Okay.
it's all. Hey, look. At the end of the day, you got to look at what you play the next game, right? So we have to deal with Brentford. We got to make sure we have no injuries, and then we, like Drew said, I mean, this is not a walk in the park again at the Bernabeu against Real Madrid. So I'm all for keeping that in context. However, Carragher, as much as he's kind of hot and cold. He's been mostly good, I think, in terms of his analysis on things. But he like most pundits has his moments. Kind of said, I kind of don't really want to talk about that. Like this in itself, regardless of what happens there, is something that we need to focus on. And that I know Sham, you mentioned, we just can't go and embarrass ourselves. And that's definitely true to an extent, right? I don't think we will. But even if it's a catastrophe, I don't think you can take away what they did and what Rice did in this match. So to me, because I'll tell you right now, one of my friends was watching it, and she's kind of a newer Arsenal fan, kind of not by choice, but it's being forced upon her, and I was like, I just want you to know, you just witnessed 2 goals that are going to be played in Arsenal fan highlights forever. Like for the rest of time, as long as Arsenal Football Club exists, one or both of those goals are going to show up consecutively on highlight reels. Not even maybe just Arsenal fans, just in Champions League highlight reels. And that's only multiplied if we make it further in the competition, and forget if we win. If we somehow win, I mean, I don't want to get there yet. I'm trying to take it one step at a time. But I was like, that was an iconic moment that you just witnessed. I just want you to know that. Just so you know.
It's interesting because that's a great point. And then I don't want to interrupt Sham, but if you think back to some of the iconic Champions League goals we have, but you have one of Bergkamp's goals. I think it was against Juventus. Bergkamp against Juventus. You had Henry against Sparta Prague. Outside of the foot. We look back at those fondly, and those weren't even in a competition we won. But it's still part of the club's legacy because of the level of player that scored them. And I would agree with you. I can't tell you how many times I watch replays of the goals. Like 20 times would probably be an understatement.
I think they're the best. They're of the, not just in Champions League, the best free kicks I've ever seen. They're top 5. That second one might be top 1 or 2. I don't think it gets much better than that. I don't understand. Like maybe further out. Maybe you go further out and you still hit the top. But I mean, as far as perfect free kicks go, that's 10 out of 10.
I'll put it to you like this. That second Declan Rice free kick, I think at some point in the near future, I'm going to put it into the intro for this pod. I might have to take out Wineries, but I'm putting Rice's in for sure.
For the next episode, I don't see why you wouldn't.
Yeah.
But
and this is regardless of what happens next week. I mean, we just witness a piece of Arsenal history, and other fans can make fun of that all you want. Whatever. You know what? It's part of the game. Like these moments in big European nights against major opposition, especially the story that we've had and the history that we've had coming into this game, you can laugh at us all you want. Like that was an amazing moment. Those are amazing goals, and it's you're never going to forget that.
But it's not just Champions League. It's not just Arsenal. It's Champions League. I'm pretty sure Rice is the only player to ever score 2 free kicks in the knockout stage of the Champions League in the same match.
Yeah, that was the first time.
And he now was the only person to have ever done it. So it's not just our club's history. It's the history of the biggest club competition in world football. Right. And that means something. And that's part of building. It's hard to explain because I feel like the club's legacy is what it is. And that's one of the reasons why I love the club so much. Like we said, like culture club, the players that have come through, who we've had kind of a standard bearers. But I do think one of the things I love so much about what we've been doing under Arteta is we're not redefining the club's legacy. We're almost kind of like, it's I don't even know how to explain it, but it's like we're adding. It's like a whole other separate book. You know what I mean? It's like we had the Iliad, now we're doing the Odyssey. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. It's like we're adding
yeah.
all part of the same. It's under the same authorship, so to speak, because the club is the author, but we're building a separate, a separate volume. Is the best thing I can say it. And I think this is kind of like that one of those big moments in that second volume where you could say, where you're reading it, you're like, okay, now it's heating up now. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's huge. It's huge. It's huge. And I was explaining to one of my really good friends, Sophia, who her dad is a huge PAOK fan because they're Greek. And she's not big into football, but like she saw all my stories on Instagram, and I was texting her and post-mention, and I was trying to explain to her like the gravity of like what just happened and how I'm feeling, because she wasn't quite grasping it. I sent her Real Madrid's history as a club, and then she read through. She was like, "Oh, I get it now." And like, and I was trying to explain like this is the biggest club on the planet, the most successful club in Europe, bar none. And for us to do what we just did, given the comparative histories between the two, like that's why the fan base is absolutely fucking losing its mind. And it's definitely going to be a thing we're going to be talking about like decades from now or whatever. And I think and we've never had a moment in my lifetime where we could say that. We've won leagues in my lifetime. We've won FA Cups in my lifetime. We've had Thierry Henry's moments in my lifetime. I've been supporting Arsenal since 1995. And I can never remember a moment where I reacted the way I did when we just won. And we didn't even win anything yet. And it was still that monumental.
Exactly. And that's kind of going back to what Carragher was saying. It's like, at the end of the day, forget that. Like whatever can happen there, this moment was that moment. And I don't think even an embarrassing result is going to be able to overwrite that.
Yeah.
Drew, I'll take a crack at trying to describe what you're getting at.
Sure.
Are you guys familiar with the Millennium series, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, vaguely, yeah.
I never read it, but I know it.
Pretty good books. I have like I have like the first two and then the fourth and then the sixth. I really should fill in the blanks there. But the first three of those books were written by a guy named Stieg Larsson, and then he died. And then the next three books were written by David Lagerkrantz. And now there's a third trilogy being written by Karen Smirnoff. And I think that's kind of the way I'm thinking of this as Drew was kind of describing this, where like, Wenger wrote his trilogy where, you had the Invincibles and you had, you had the couple league doubles and you had the Champions League night in 2006. And I think
building
Arteta,
the stadium.
Yeah, and building the Emirates and kind of like establishing the modern legacy of Arsenal. And now Arteta has come along and he's writing his trilogy in Arsenal's story. So yeah, I think Arteta is really just trying to write the sequel to especially the first half of the Wenger era. But yeah, I think for me, and maybe we can talk about kind of what we expect to see happen at the Bernabeu and maybe how we'd set up there. But for me, I think the goal is not to make yesterday look like a fluke.
Yeah.
I think that's the goal. And, in terms of how important a moment this is, what do you think William Saliba's thinking today? What do you think Bukayo Saka is thinking today? What do you think? I mean, we know what Declan Rice is probably thinking today. Right.
I mean,
but do you
he's
think
still tweeting about his goals the day after, and that's how he's still like it still hasn't fully set in. So that's a very big microcosm of how we're all feeling in general, anyway.
But none of those guys are thinking to themselves right now, I can't win big trophies at Arsenal.
Right.
They just beat Real Madrid. I mean, if you can beat them, you can beat anybody. Yep. So yeah, I think this was a really big night in that respect, and we can kind of we're going to turn now to kind of the away leg, where we don't have to beat them again, but we certainly have to avoid losing to them badly enough where we're out of the competition. And I guess my question to you guys here is, what would you do at the Bernabeu? I mean, would you try to do more of the same and kind of take the game to Real again and try to control the match? Or Are you battening down the hatches and trying to defend, with all hands on deck for 90 minutes?
No, I think you have to go out and play. I think the minute you surrender the momentum you just gained, you lose. And against the Real Madrid team, where if you were to sit back against Real Madrid and they were to get, say, let's replay it. Say we go into the Bernabeu with the 3-0 lead, and Vinny Jr. gets that same opportunity 4 minutes in because we're sitting deep, and they score that goal. Do you really think that they're not going to feed off that momentum of an early goal at the Bernabeu, where we're sitting deep and inviting pressure for 90 minutes? We'll lose. We'll lose big. I think you have to attack them. You don't have to be irresponsible when doing it, of course. I don't think we ever will be because we're under Arteta, but I do think you have to find a way. I think for me, you have to find a way to make sure you're not losing inside the first 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they'll start to get frustrated. And then that's when they'll start to make mistakes. And then maybe you hit them on the counter more as well. You don't have to necessarily always look to control the match. But I do think it's going to be one of those moments where I want to see us being slightly more incisive, where if we have a chance to really break, do it. Because we've seen how disjointed they are defensively. And that's something we talked about before the first leg, where that's why I wanted Real Madrid over Atleti anyway. Because against Atleti, I don't think we're beating them over 2 legs. They're so good defensively, I think we'd really struggle. And we struggle against low block teams in the first place, but against Real Madrid, who are more open, who have their own questions in defense, I just think you have to go at them. You can't just sit back. We can't try to stoke it or whatever.
I think that's a really good point, Drew. And the way I kind of looked at it was they need to just go into this game like it's 0-0.
Yeah.
And play your game the way you would as if it was 0-0. But, noting that you would do a 0-0, but you're playing away from home. So whatever that entails, like don't do anything different than if it were not 0. Get the first goal, but maintain your defensive solidity like we have in the season. Don't concede first. Get that first goal and then operate just like a normal game.
Yeah. I think playing the individual match scenario instead of playing the occasion is really important. So like John said, if you play like you're going in 0-0, you're not worried about we're up 3 aggregate goals or whatever. You're worried about it's 0-0 and we want to go and get a result to Bernabeu. Treat it like a league match. And that's what sometimes when Madrid has slipped this season, you've had much smaller clubs than we have gotten points against Real Madrid in one-off performances in La Liga because they'll just go in and take their chances when they get them. They'll get less chances than we'll get, of course, but like they're still looking at it on an individual basis. And I think John's correct. We have to look at it as just wipe the slate clean in the back of your mind kind of thing. Go in and look to get a result at the Bernabeu. Don't worry about because the minute you're saying it's okay, we're up 3-0 already. If they reach for the first goal, it's okay, we're up 3-1, it's still fine. Then it's okay, and then it's up 3-2, and then all of a sudden before you know it. I just think that's a recipe for disaster. And no matter how much I trust Arteta and the group of players we have, you've got to attack it in the right mental space. And if you don't, like I said, if we go down and go early, like that's what I don't want. Like I said, I'd even say 15 minutes. If we can just get past the first 15 minutes, because the Bernabeu is going to be rocking. And what they'll probably do is they'll probably close the dome, make it louder. We're trying to make us uncomfortable. Like first 15, 20 minutes, just go in and make sure we're steady, we're solid. Don't give up a big chance early.
The Ultras are already promising that they're going to do something on the way in to the Bernabeu that they've never done for another team before.
This is big European football night. This is what it's about. Like this is what we want to see us go up against. Everyone's like, oh yeah, but who have they played? They lost this city or they did this. They did in Europa League. But like, no, now it's a game that Real Madrid are against the wall and have to win. At their home. Like this is the big European night that we were hoping for. I hope it's insane in there. I hope that it's going crazy and we still stump them. That would be absolutely, that would make it perfect. Yeah. Please go in there. Hope it's rocking. And I hope we still tear them apart. That'd be great.
I hope I don't jinx it. I'm not trying to jinx it, but I would say if we get past Real Madrid, we'll win Champions League. I'm going to say that now. I generally do think that because I do think I'm terrified of Barcelona, but I think but they're so susceptible to having brain fart mistakes this season. Even though they're so good when they attack, though they're very I've had to watch so much of them this season because of work. They're devastatingly good when they attack, but they are all very prone to silly moments in defense. So if you're again, same thing. If you trust the way you can defend against a good attacking team, and then yourself attack well, it's such a big mitigating factor. So
Hey, I hope you're right.
yeah.
I will say, Barcelona kind of strikes me as a team that we could very well lose to, but I think we're equipped to handle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really Lamine Yamal who I'm terrified of.
Right.
Yeah, but like, Rafinha against Timber, like, yeah, he's going to be pretty troublesome. But I back Timber to mostly keep him quiet, and that's a player that we're familiar with from the Premier League. I'm not going to analyze it. We're going too far ahead. But yeah, I kind of get the same feeling, Drew, because I was watching the PSG game today, and I think the thing about PSG is they have very dangerous players, but they're not like Madrid. Madrid, you give them clear-cut chances and they will kill you. I feel like PSG just sometimes lack a bit of that ruthlessness. And you saw it against Liverpool at home in Paris, where they couldn't put their chances away and they lost. That we came close to seeing that against Villa today, but again at Paris, where they didn't put their chances away, and then Villa went up. And then PSG woke up a little bit, and Emery, of course, Emery'd and played into their hands.
I think that's more. I think it's more of that. I think if it wasn't Emery in that position, I think if it was a coach who wanted to go out and capitalize on that goal, I think you see a different result. But that's a whole other thing.
Well, when you sub on Dizazi to play right back against Desiree Doué and Kvaratskhelia, I mean you're asking for it. But yeah, I do think this is probably the biggest hurdle for us, and it's just a matter about kind of keeping our heads. And I agree. By the way, I don't want us to go there and just give them the ball, because they're a team that if they can't hurt you if they don't have the ball. So if you give them the ball, they're a team that can come up with magic out of thin air and do some crazy shit. So yeah, I want us to play our game maybe a little bit more conservatively, but not that much. And I want us to hold on to possession. I want us to frustrate them. And yeah, when we lose possession, get quickly back into shape, defend really well, but be ready to spring the counter. I'm looking at Martinelli, especially, as a very key player in this game. And yeah, I think we can do it. And, I think Arteta will especially kind of try to get everyone in the headspace of, forgetting about this week. And like you guys said, playing it 0-0. So, yeah, man, we'll see what happens. It's still surreal, to be quite honest. I mean, we've talked about it for almost an hour and 15 minutes, and I still can't quite believe that we did
I'm
that.
sure the Real Madrid players feel the same. I bet Mbappe is like, wait a minute, I left PSG and now they have a better chance of winning the Champions League than me. How does that happen? So I'm sure they're wondering what the hell's going on too.
Oh, and to back up Drew's point about kind of liking our odds if we beat Real Madrid, the Opta Analyst supercomputer does now have us as the favorites to win.
Is it like 23% or something, or 28%? It's like
28.
But still, yeah, but it's still higher than everyone else, which is all right.
I think the next highest is like 26 point something.
They also had us winning the league last year, so at one point, or the year before, one of those two. So, grain of salt.
I think it was last season. Yeah.
Yeah, grain of salt, a little bit grain of salt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that supercomputer getting a little ahead of itself.
Yeah, it's like that scene from Willy Wonka when it's trying to like find out where the Wonka bars are.
Yeah,
and it's going, I can't tell you. That would be cheating.
Great shout.
Well, you guys got anything else that we want to hit before we get out of here?
No, I don't think so. I just kind of feel like I thought I personally want to close out kind of how we began. It's just more of like, and we've I've touched on before, is I feel like I really hope that fans see this as like a way to like just understand, like,
do you get it now? Did you see?
Yeah, like how impactful this all is. Like, please, like, just keep faith in what Arteta's trying to achieve. Understand what the club are building, and I'll always say that, like, as Americans.
Arteta sucks, bro.
But my desk just
I don't know, man.
but like how, and I think is And it's not their fault. Like a lot of the Arsenal fans that are UK based or not in the US and they don't know much about KSC. And we've seen as US sports fans of other sports, we've seen how KSC operate in terms of how they build out their franchises and what their ultimate goal is, and it's actually to go on and actually win things, even though it doesn't seem like that at first. But they do it in a way that makes it sustainable. So if when they get to the top, they want to be able to sustain the club or the franchise at the top or very close to it, rather than just doing like a one-off, like a Leicester, for example, who are about to get relegated, even though they won the Premier League in the very recent future.
They just fired the head coach and GM at the Nuggets.
Yeah.
Like they don't tolerate extended failure.
No, they don't. Like, but they'll be fine with incremental growth, but once you get to the point where they're like, okay, now you have to turn this into an actual winning thing, and you don't deliver, they will then actually remove you. So I just feel like it's not just about, like John said, you see about, like, I think I use that moment as like a more of like an Arteta thing, like, please stop doubting what Arteta's trying to do.
Yeah, totally.
But for me, I got so burnt, and I'll speak like on a personal level. I got so burnt out during the two instances of all these fan protests and fans just feeling so entitled to things. And I feel like you have to earn the right to be that way. And I don't think we did before. I think Real Madrid fans have the right. I see a lot of Madrid fans calling for Ancelotti to be sacked after they lost last weekend before we played them. And links to like taking the Brazil job and all that kind of stuff. A lot of fans are getting fed up with Ancelotti for whatever reason. But Real Madrid are a club that have the right, where fans should have the voice to make those kind of massive demands. I feel like I just feel like we, like, trying to say that we, like, if our manager doesn't win the league, he should go. You have to base it on actual recent-ish achievement, and we didn't. And I think now I just want fans to, instead of trying to find ways to be divisive about even the littlest things, just like, again, come together and enjoy the run that we're on, because it's not one that we would have expected. I don't think any of us would have thought we would have finished top 3 in the league in the group phase and then beaten Real Madrid comfortably in the away leg in the quarterfinals. I don't think anyone would have said we would have been, given the context of the season, I never would have thought we could have made the semifinals of Champions League, provided we actually make it. And then go on to have a conversation about we might actually be able to actually make the final. And then maybe actually win it, and we haven't had that opportunity to have that conversation since 2006. Who, ironically, we play Barca in the final, so it'll be hysterical if we play Barca in the final if we actually make it this season. And I think it would be interesting, like, come full circle moments. So I just want fans to just enjoy it, just have fun, enjoy it. Remember, like, how much you love football, why you fell in love with it. Find the moments in this to, like, reconnect with it, and just try to find sort of positive energy out of it instead of just finding ways to just like turn that into some sort of like, debatable piece on Twitter because you just want a couple clicks. Like, just strip that away and enjoy what's going on right now.
Yeah. John, you got anything?
No, that was beautiful.
Yeah. You guys want to hear my my Wesley Sneijder impression before we get out of here?
Yeah, of course.
Declan Rice's goals weren't even that good. It was Courtois' wall that was bad. Okay, Rice isn't good. All right, I watched the freaking. They weren't even that special. Everyone's overreacting.
I've never seen a more bitter footballer than Wesley Sneijder, which is unfortunate because he was so good in his prime, but he's just become unbearable. He's fucking unbearable.
Him and Van der Vaart, they both suck.
Suck.
I don't want any more Dutch analysts that retired in the 2010s. No, thank you.
Fair.
Okay. Well, that's all I got. So we will call it there, and like we've all kind of said over the course of this, to those of you watching, listening, enjoy it. Enjoy this moment. Seriously. I've never seen anything like this. This is that match is a memory that I'm going to hold with me forever, and I hope you guys do as well. So thank you for being here with us. Thank you for taking the time to listen, for being a part of the conversation, and we will be back hopefully on Sunday. I've been chatting with a potential guest about him coming on that day. So we'll see if we can make that happen. And we'll talk about the Brentford game. We'll look ahead to the Real Madrid match in the Bernabeu again, and anything else that comes up between now and then. But I'm Sham. You can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale. That was John. You can follow him on Twitter at 305cast and on Blue Sky yellowribbons.bsky.social. And that was Drew. You can follow him on Twitter at Geechee Kid and on Blue Sky at supplyanddomandrew.bsky.social. Follow the pod on Twitter and Blue Sky at NotThatGooner. And you can follow us on Instagram at NotThatKindOfGooner. Shoot us an email if you want, NotThatKindOfGooner@gmail.com. We've got a YouTube channel as well, same name, NotThatKindOfGooner. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please do leave us a 5-star review. It really does help out and really does push the pod out towards more people so that we can grow our audience. We'd really appreciate that. So we'll be back with you after Brentford. I don't even know if it's home or away. That's how much I care about this match. But we'll talk to you after that. And until then, take care and bye. Bye.